Harold David Nightingale. People call me Harry. I lived on Poplar Avenue, which is in Elmwood. And Elmwood has been the hotbed of lacrosse for decades and years. I think it never died in Elmwood and kind of had to be refurbished in other parts of the city. Yeah, I think in Manitoba, I'm pretty sure, I know for certain that Manitoba is the only other province other than Ontario and BC that had lacrosse continually since 1800s and that. Yeah, my wife was Ruth Nightingale. I met her. I was down in the University of Texas in Austin, Texas, and I met her there at a place that I worked at, and we got married down there. We had 3 children in there, and 2 daughters and a son. And the boy was the youngest of them. They're 2 years apart each. Yeah, Dan had Dad playing some minor lacrosse and that too, and then I quit being involved in lacrosse, and he stopped playing at that time. But he was a fairly good athlete in other ways in there too. Yes, I have 5 grandchildren, 2 of them living here in Winnipeg, and Dan, my son, and he has three young sons. And all 3 of them can play lacrosse. They can handle a stick and that. Because I would go down there and play with them and that too. And Dad's wife, Kate, was from Towson, Maryland, and she played lacrosse there. She was a goalkeeper for the field lacrosse team in Towson and that too. So she knew how to handle a stick as well. Too, right? I was a school teacher. And I started out teaching in the junior high school in a special education class, and there, actually I started out in the rural part of the province, just outside of Winnipeg. I did that for a couple of years, and then came back into the city and worked for the Winnipeg School Division, and was a counselor for about 10 years, and while teaching, I coached at least 2 different teams every year that I taught school. And last couple of years I was there when I was at Grant Park High School. A couple of kids came and approached me at that, and they had heard that I was involved in lacrosse. One of them was a guy that I played lacrosse with. His father was a bit of a lacrosse player, and I guess his father told his son about me and that too. So they came and wanted me to coach a team in that too, and that's what I told him. If you find, I can't remember, I said maybe 20 guys that want to play, I'll coach you in that too. And so they went out, probably within a day, they had 20 guys to play in that too. So we had a field lacrosse team. I did that for about, I guess, the last couple of years that I was teaching in that. Yeah, I would have been 55, so 1980, 91. Yeah, I guess probably in terms of playing, one of the things I remember scoring, I think it was the first year that he was brought up to senior, and I think I was 17 when they brought me up to play senior, and that's when one of the guys got it. And so I remember scoring 4 goals on a goalkeeper named Clark Hicks. And Clark Hicks, I considered him, and everybody else probably did as well, he considered to be one of the top goalkeepers that went through Manitoba and that too. And he's in our Hall of Fame, Clark is in that too. But yeah, I was very accurate with the team in that too. So that was one of the highlights too. And playing for Minto Cups. Yeah, I did it for 3 teams, 2 or 3 teams. In terms of the playing part, I guess I was an all-star in 3 different decades, in 1950s, 1960s, and 1970. And I was the MVP of the league in several years as well. In the early 50s, the first year I played was 1955, but they had a team in 1951 that actually beat a I think, an Ontario team, to advance to the final. So what happened is that they would alternate. ABC would come one year to Manitoba and play a 3-game series, best of 3 series against the Manitoba team, and the winner of that would advance to, in this case, Ontario. And the next year, Ontario would come through and play a best of 3 series, and and so the 1951 team, they won their division. I can't remember who they beat, but they got beat pretty badly in the playoffs and that too, right? Now the 1954 and 55 team, the 1954 team, I wasn't on that one, but they defeated the Ontario team. I went to play against the team in BC, and it was one of the PNE Indian teams that they played against, and they lost in the series. But I mean, they were competitive and probably had a good chance of winning in that too, right? So the next year, the BC team that came through was this PNE team, and that team hadn't lost a game in 2 years, and we beat them 2 out of 3 games to advance to play in Ontario. And the team that we played against, if I'm not mistaken, was the same team that came through before, came through Manitoba before that was beaten by 54 team. But the thing about it, the Ontario team and the BC team, they're used to that kind of a travel, so they would be very well managed and coached, so to the point where they would follow all kinds of rules, eh? I'm not sure about the PNE teams. I heard some stories about them, but they may have taken us a little bit too lightly, I think. That's it. But we had we had an exceptional team, in that team. We had a couple of guys that went played in the AHL. Ted Harris was from here, and he played for the Montreal Canadiens for a number of years, and actually he played in the Western Hockey League for Eddie Shore's team too, eh? And so and then his lacrosse playing was pretty well finished at that time, because he would just go on for that. Another guy was Gary Alcorn, and Gary Alcorn went down and he played for Toronto for a few years, and then he was traded to Detroit and played on the line with Gordie Howe and had his best year. He had 20 goals in one season too, eh? But yeah, so we had some. They would probably compete pretty well. That particular team would probably compete pretty well against the Minto Cup and that too. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, there was field lacrosse being played, and that would have been played in the communities around, eh? Not necessarily in Winnipeg and that too. Eh? So some of the rural towns would have lacrosse teams, and that continued on through, and then it got into the 1930s, and that was all field lacrosse at that time, right? And then they brought in box lacrosse in 1932, and a lot of those guys that played field lacrosse then started to play box lacrosse as well. Yeah, there's a community club there called Kelvin Community Club, where I saw, I guess the first time I ever saw a lacrosse game, I was riding a bicycle from from East Kildonan, which is a neighboring, it was a city at that time, and over to Popper Avenue where I lived. And my dad was having a house built on Popper Avenue and that, eh? So I was driving by the Kelvin Community Rink, and there was a lacrosse game going on, and I stopped and watched that too, and it was, we wound up in a brawl and that too, eh? But the amazing thing was, as I was watching that, I mean, they were all friends, and that was great. I mean, they were all out there and they were celebrating together afterwards and stuff, But that was the first game that I saw. And one of the guys, well, I guess the goalkeeper, never wore any equipment. And he just lived up at the top of the hill from Kelvin Community Club. So it went on for long there, and there was a family that lived in an area named the O'Dowdas, and Ernie O'Dowda was a lacrosse player in the 1930s and 1940s, and he was involved at the Kelvin Community Club pretty well all of his life, and he's in he's in our Hall of Fame, Manitoba Lacrosse Hall of Fame, as a builder. And he had a brother that had polio and that too, so he was crippled to a certain extent too, but he was involved in the management of lacrosse games and stuff. So I guess the point of it is that those people and some others as well, but those probably more noteworthy, were responsible for continuing lacrosse and that. So. Yeah, no, at Kelvin Community Club, the first years that I played there, and I played minor lacrosse there as well, but the floor was a shale floor, right? So anytime you fell in there, I mean, there'd be some strawberries all over your legs and stuff like that. Eh? And then after a time, I guess they arranged, probably Radio Dowda had some influence about that, eh? But they arranged to have hardtop put into the rink and that too, eh? Which made it easy to be flooding as well, for the ice in the winter time and that too, eh? But they put that in there and we played in there. It probably still has that thing there. And one year all the lacrosse players got together to put up a 8-foot fencing around the box and that too. So we played in there for years and years, and then. There was a fellow named Jack Perrin, who was one of the richer people in Winnipeg, and he owned a rink called the Olympic Rink in the north end of the city. And I'm not sure who got him involved in it, but he had lacrosse being played in there, and it had a mud floor, but they had all types of platform wood flooring that they put together. And we could play on that, and so we played on that for a number of years, and then it kind of folded, and the city had built other arenas, and then I had played in a couple of those arenas. There's one in the north end called Old Exhibition Arena. There's one in the Maginot Arena in St. Boniface, but there's one in the south end too. But in any case, the lacrosse was being played in there, and when I got involved with the organization lacrosse in the 1960s, their lacrosse was going on in the north end, and most of it was being played in the Old X Arena, and they were not really built for lacrosse because the ceilings were not that high, so I mean you couldn't do a lot of lob passes, but I mean it was quite suitable, to get it in there and do it, so people didn't have much trouble learning to play at it. I guess I had taken to handball. One of the reasons I took to the fact is that you had to learn to use both hands in that too, and and lacrosse we did the same thing, like just about everybody in Manitoba learned to shoot both ways and that too, and I was I was quite adept at it, because I would practice for hours at one time because I wanted to play on the power play for a guy who was my hero, who was on the same team I was, and he shot the same way I did and that too, and I wanted to play a crease on him, so I learned practice for hours catching. It was easy to learn to pass than it is to catch the wrong hand, but I learned to be quite adept at that, and we scored a lot of goals over the years. Yeah. I guess when I was a teenager, I guess I had 2 goals when I was in school. When I got out of school, one of them was I wanted to be a pilot in there, and then so when I got out of grade 12, I went to the Air Force to join the Air Force, and they would take me in there, but they wouldn't be able to fly. He says because I'm colorblind, and so I didn't join the Air Force in that too. And the other dream I had was to travel around the world, too. And so when I was 75 years old, I was still playing golf at that time too. I played golf for decades, but there nearby there was an air instruction company just a little ways from the golf course and that too. So I figured, well, I'll go take flying lessons and that too. So I learned to fly a plane at 75 years of age, and then I, after I did that, then it struck me, well, I got another dream in that too, So I went on the internet, figure out there's would be ways of just fly from one place to another in that too, But what I came up with traveling around the world was with a particular shipping company. They had around the world cruises going in that too, So, so about a year after I learned how to fly, I took a cruise around the world. Probably the equipment more than anything else. I mean, the sticks are one thing in that too, but like when I first started playing, we didn't even wear helmets, and then we got to wearing helmets and never wear masks and stuff like that, and so it advanced to the point now where the entire head is covered and stuff like that. But yeah, and I think that the skill of the game, I think, has always been such a great aspect of the game. So that hasn't changed, and that too. I guess the wooden sticks, I guess, would surprise a lot of people in the use of them, and the fact that, like, when you got a wooden stick, whenever I bought a stick, I remember looking at it and I'd hold it on two fingers and there's a balance in there, see whether it flopped one way or the other, because I wanted one that didn't flop anywhere. And that's how, yeah, so I would choose that to have a stick there, and then after you got the stick, the all leather stick, you had to make a pocket in it there too. And so that's what everybody did, I guess, but what I did is I would hang my stick in between points in there, and I would put a ball in there, and I'd put ropes and two ropes flapping over it there, and have a gallon or 2 gallon, about 1 gallon can of paint on there, and overnight the pocket would form. But I didn't need to do too much work because I didn't have a very deep pocket any time I ever played lacrosse with that too. So I played against a guy who was a natural goal scorer too, But I think he was a rover, but he never came back to check. So whenever we played him, we'd always form a power play when he was on the floor. But yeah, the rover, that was an interesting thing here, and I never can remember why they stopped it. Maybe they wanted to just open the game up a little. I'm not sure what it was. The thing that's happening now, is there's an explosion of lacrosse players that happened. Well, we were talking before, probably in the 70s when they first they invented the plastic stick and that too, Because when they I guess one of the things that might interest somebody before is the manufacture of sticks, the wooden sticks in there, right? And I had gone down to Chisholm Lacrosse Factory in Ontario, and got to know Chisholm, the owner, and that too there. And so he took me around, showed how the stick was made, And you had to do each one separately, too, So you can imagine the time it would take to make 100,000 sticks. And that, and so that the new stick, I never played lacrosse with it, but I played with it, in coaching certain things in that too, And the things you could do with it were magical. I replaced, or restored, or repaired every part of the stick except the guard on that too. Like I would. Guys would come with broken sticks to me and that too, and I would make the handle was broken and that too, And I would form splices in there and splice it in there, and I had fiberglass tape and fiberglass liquid and stuff like that, And that stick was stronger, and it would never break after that again. Wow. And I would fix any part of the pocket, by just splicing leather and stuff like that. The cost of going to university down there wasn't any more than it was going to university here, That was around $400 a year. But yeah, so so I still have gone down. I haven't gone here the last couple of years, but traveling has been curtailed. But I used to go down there on a regular basis, and I'd visit family. My wife's family is from there, and I would go down to the University of Texas, and they had lacrosse going there as well. And it was club teams which means they weren't financed in that too, but it was pretty high level lacrosse too. Yeah, when I did the induction speech at the Canadian Lacrosse Hall of Fame induction, I commented that I did all that because I just wanted to play lacrosse, and that's how I started into it. That too, right? And the stuff I did, is a long-lasting thing there, and people always came up to me and commenting about how they helped them and how I helped them in their life with the stuff, and that. So it's very, very satisfying to hear that type of things being said about me and that too. I also, as well as coaching, I refereed like the first couple of years of that too, right? Refereed and tried getting the lacrosse formed in other parts of the province and that too, the interesting thing, there's always an interest in the kids playing lacrosse, but it never became successful in my opinion because there's nobody in the community that would carry on with it, I firmly believe that we need to train coaches in these areas, to get it going in there. And there's a large Aboriginal population in Manitoba, and I think it would be ideal to do that. And there is a particular guy, Don Jacks, who used to be involved with our director, who's does stuff with the Aboriginal communities in terms of clinics and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. I bought my scrapbook, and it's kind of funny, because the scrapbook is a result of my daughter-in-law and son bugging my wife and I that they want to have a grandfather book and that too, to tell us about what we did in that. And all of my life I never kept a scrapbook and that too. So I had, I went online and I Googled my name, for lacrosse and stuff like that. And when I got a bunch of information about, I could read them on the on the internet. So that all this stuff that I have here, is a result of these printouts of the thing there.
Different stories.
Yeah. And there was a team that I coached for 4 years in the junior team that we played in the senior league, and we played in national championships and won Western Canadian championships. And I don't remember any of the details of what's happened during that. Like I remember all the players of that too, and so when I did that, I went on there and I got this in ages and stuff like that, in years, and so the thing, this was 1971, for example, on that, so what happened in the 1968, 69, and 70, my name hardly ever came up, mainly because I wasn't playing.
Right.
Well, and so it only come up when when the coach in there, Now the unfortunate, but I guess one of the things I also did is, my brother kind of started it before I did, is that I used to go down after games. This was in the 50s and 60s and 70s. I would go down to the Winnipeg Free Press, and there was a Tribune at that time, and I would write up the articles about the games and stuff like that, right? And the guys at the Free Press used to give me a byline. We probably started at the same time, right? Because when we moved into, like he would have been 13 when I was 12, so we both kind of grew up playing it in there. And he played on the 54 junior team, but he wasn't as dedicated as me for the game in that too, so he wasn't as good as me.